John gave the tape to his showbiz agent, George Ganshew, who played it to Norrie Paramor, head of A&R at EMI record label Columbia. Norrie asked us to come in to audition, liked our spirited run-throughs of Elvis and Jerry Lee, and made an offer. His label would release a single by us of his choosing. The single Norrie gave us was Schoolboy Crush, an upbeat, jaunty little number that had been an American hit the year before for a country singer called Bobby Helms. I could not have been more thrilled about the chance to make a record, but if I'm honest, I was pretty lukewarm towards the song. Bobby Helms' main claim to fame was that at Christmas 1957, he'd become the first artist to release and have a big hit with Jingle Bell Rock. 65 years later, I recorded it for my Christmas with Cliff album. You can't keep a good song down. When the Drifters was just Norman, Terry, and me, we'd never given a thought to where songs come from. We just heard hits we liked on the radio and learned to play them. We had never read the names of the songwriters on singles, or tried to write any ourselves. It just never occurred to us. That was to change dramatically now Ian Samuel had joined the band. Ian used to get the Green Line 751 bus from his home in London Colney to my house in Cheshunt to rehearse with us. One fateful day, he turned up at my door looking animated and holding not just his guitar, but also a few scraps of paper. "Hey, guess what?" he said. "I just started writing a song on the bus. I'm calling it Move It." We went through to the living room, and Ian plugged his guitar into our little Selma amp. He had only written the bare bones of the song. It didn't really have an intro yet. It was just a riff, a verse, and a chorus. But he played us what he had, and I absolutely loved it from the second I heard it. As soon as Ian played the riff, I got excited. It sounded raw, primal, fantastic. It sounded like a proper rock and roll song. Only it hadn't been written by Chuck Berry in America. It had been written by one of us on the 751 to Cheshunt. Ian didn't have the full lyrics yet, but he already had a few words. "Come on, pretty baby, let's move it and groove it." They fitted the riff perfectly, like a hand in a glove. Ian had finished playing inside a minute. He looked at us and shrugged. "I don't know. What do you think?" he asked. "I think it's fantastic," I replied. "Did you really write it on the Green Line?" "Yep." Ian, Norman, Terry, and I spent that afternoon working on Move It and trying to lick it into shape. To my ears, it sounded better every time we played it. It felt incredible to be playing an original song for the first time. And there was one very important person that I wanted to hear it straight away. John Foster phoned up Norrie Paramor and asked if we could see him again to play him something. We were still tweaking our new baby on the Green Line to London. It was coming together, but it still only had one verse and a chorus. It was far from finished. When we got to Norrie's office, I found it nerve-wracking to play our own creation to him. I found it hard even to look at him as I was singing it, but I needn't have worried. Norrie liked Move It and said that we could record it as the B-side of our debut single, Schoolboy Crush. "But it's only half a song at the moment, Mr. Paramor," I said, surprised. "Oh, that doesn't matter," said Norrie. "We'll put a guitar solo in, and then we'll just do the whole thing again." Norrie initially wanted an orchestra to play Move It and me to sing over the top. But I felt strongly that it was a rock and roll song that needed a rock and roll band to play it. Norrie relented, but still wasn't sure we had the musical ability to do it properly. He explained that he was going to hire 2 session guys to help us. So Cliff Richard and the Drifters had 2 temporary extra men when we came to record it. But we were also 1 original member down. Norman Mitham's guitar skills weren't up to the level of Ian Samwell's. With me strumming away as well, we didn't really need Norman and the band, and we went our separate ways. It was a tough call to make because I'd known Norman since school. We'd always hung out together. He'd been with me in Waltham Cross when I first heard Elvis, and he'd been a founder member of the Drifters. But music had to come first. I couldn't be sentimental. I'm just pleased that our friendship survived. We recorded Move It not long after we'd first played it to Norrie, on a Sunday afternoon in EMI's studio in St John's Wood, northwest London. It was a slick, intimidating complex, unlike anything we'd seen before. It was certainly nothing like the cupboard over the HMV store where we'd made our demo. Norrie was to produce the single himself. He certainly cut quite a dash in the studios. We'd only seen him looking like a sober and suited businessman before, but he rocked up in Abbey Road in a Hawaiian shirt and Bermuda shorts. He was still in holiday mode, having recently got back from Morocco. Norrie introduced us to the session men. Ernie Shear was a small Scottish guy in horn-rimmed specs. He usually played the banjo in one of Norrie's groups, the Big Ben Banjo Band, but was to play guitar with us that day. Frank Clark was a tall, broad, good-looking double bass player. Ernie and Frank were in their late 20s and early 30s. They were friendly to us, but probably thought us teenage rock and roll kids were a bit of a novelty. We had never met them, but I was glad they were there. I couldn't imagine how Ian, Terry, and I could do Move It justice on our own. And when Norrie got behind the production desk, the green light went on, and we began playing. I saw at once how right Norrie had been to bring them in. We recorded Schoolboy Crush first, and I instantly realized that I was playing with the big boys now, with real musicians. These guys knew exactly what they were doing. Then we turned to Move It, which at this stage still didn't even have an intro. Well, that was before Ernie Shear seemed to pull one out from thin air. He glanced at Ian's notes for the song and asked, "What if I do da-dun-dun-da-dun-da-dun-dun-dun-dun," and fired out this brilliant noise. It was perfect, just what the tune needed. Frank Clark got a great rhythmic throb going on the bass to power us along, and Ian Samwell was cranking out the killer riff. Wow, amazing. I was strumming at my guitar as well, as I sang, until Norrie's voice came over the headphones telling me to put my guitar down. "We don't need it, Cliff." Huh, charming. I'm joking. I didn't mind. I wanted whatever was best for the song, but I was so used to holding my guitar as I sang that it felt a bit weird to sing without it. A few minutes later, Norrie came back on the headphones and told me to pick my guitar up again if it helped me with my vocals, but not to play it. I tried to obey Norrie, but I got so into the music that I couldn't help having a couple of crafty strums, so my guitar playing may well be somewhere on Move It. You just have to listen very, very hard to hear it. Terry, Ian, and I may have been wet behind the ears and new to a studio, but the experienced guys we were with were bang on the ball. Unbelievable as it is, we recorded Move It in just 2 takes. After our second run-through, Norrie said, "Yes, that's a good take. That will do." And that was that. It was all done and dusted in no more than about 45 minutes, and we headed to the production room and gathered eagerly around Norrie's console for the playback. It sounded sensational. Ian, Terry, and I were staring at each other in glee. Wow, did we just do that? Is that really our song? It's always strange to hear your own voice, and I couldn't believe that it was my singing voice coming out of the huge studio speakers. I couldn't believe how good it sounded.